Good morning. My name is Stephen Stone, and I'm the Superintendent of Schools, and I welcome you to Dracut High School this morning for the dedication of the Dracut Public Schools Athletic Complex in the name of Edmund Murphy. I would ask everyone first to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance on this day of Thanksgiving. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Of note, for our first-time visitors from outside Dracut, I welcome you to our Learning Commons here at Dracut High School, which prior to the recent renovation was the gymnasium at Dracut High School. So it's apropos that we are here this morning. I'd like to recognize some of our special guests who are here this morning who will not be speaking. Members of the Dracut School Committee, Mr. Dan O'Connell is here, Ms. Allison Volpe, Ms. Sabrina Heisey, Ms. Betsy Murphy, and the Chairman of the Dracut School Committee, Mr. Wilkie, who will speak in a moment. At this point, a point of personal privilege, if I could, I'd like to recognize and thank our Facilities Director, Andy Graham, for all of his efforts in ensuring that the signage and actual dedication plaque were expertly provided. And to my assistant, Cindy Curtis, for her, as usual, outstanding efforts in organizing today's ceremony. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge the Dracut School Committee for the unanimous support of expanding the scope of the original dedication of space at Dracut High School in Mr. Murphy's name to include the entire sports complex here that you can see behind me. The erection of a dedication plaque outside of the gymnasium, the placement of signage at the corner of Lakeview Ave and Frederick Street, and the reservation of a display case downstairs for memorabilia of Mr. Murphy's time as a coach here at Dracut High School. I also note for the visitors here today that at the time of the passing of Mr. Murphy, as a demonstration of respect for him and his time here, the school department has been honoring him by having all varsity athletes for a year wear a patch on their uniforms, and in the case of the football team, a sticker on their helmet with his initials as a token of our respect for him. I have a theory that I've been sort of developing over the past number of years about coaches. I believe now, and I posit to you, that there is the amount of reverence and respect one has for their high school coach is directly related to the amount of pain, agony, shame, guilt, whatever other motivational tools used by a high school coach towards their athletes. That decades after one goes through high school and plays for a coach like Mr. Murphy, from the stories I've heard, that you hear men and women still refer to the high school coach as coach. And that is certainly a respect due to all of those coaches. And I know that occurs here, and would like to acknowledge the committee that brought forth the recommendation to the school committee, the request to expand the scope of the dedication. All of those men, both colleagues and athletes who played for Coach Murphy, still refer to him as coach. And I think that is something worthy of note and respect. First speaker that I'd like to bring up to the podium for a few moments is our athletic director, Ms. Paula Chaucy.
Thank you. I am honored to be present today, especially having it be Thanksgiving, because I stood on those very sidelines with Coach Murphy in 1988 as a cheerleader as we beat the Methuen Rangers and went on to capture that 1988 Super Bowl championship title. But even at that time, when I was just a freshman and the team was celebrating such enormous success, me couldn't understand how much of an impact one person, one coach, one athletic director, one mentor could truly have on our student athletes, our teams, and our community. I know now. I look around today, I see all this great turnout. I see it on the chest of our athletes, I see it on the boys' helmets, and I see it on the sidelines. I hear it in the great stories that I've attended in the last few years as athletic director in this town, and even before that. And I was grateful to be able to attend Coach's birthday party this summer of 2016. And I was able to talk to many athletes that he had coached, as well as many that had coached right beside him. And that was when I realized how significant those days were and those memories were because Coach Murphy was at the helm. It is rare today to find a coach with the match dedication, commitment, and passion that he had, who will experience the longevity that Coach Murphy did and could be considered the dean. I sat with a good friend who also was on that 1988 Super Bowl team. And as we discussed today's dedication last week, we couldn't agree more that Coach Murphy was unique and special. He was devoted to this town and called it his home for quite some time. And now we are returning the favor. I thank you today for allowing me to be here. I thank the committee that brought this together. And I thank you, and I speak for all of the coaches and myself when I say that he has left something amazing for all of us to aspire to, and we only hope that we can make the impact that he has on all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Chauncey, I think you are relieved, as I know you're a little stressed about making sure that the game was off on time, so thank you very much.
Hope we'll see everybody at the game. Go Middies! Woo!
It is my honor at this time to introduce the chairman of the Dracut School Committee, Mr. Joseph Wilkie.
Thank you, Superintendent Stone, and thank you, Mrs. Chauncey. Paula left out that she was a graduate of 1992. Obviously, she was a freshman 1988. We were freshmen together. As Stephen just said, my name is Joe Wilkie, and I'm the chairman of the Dracut School Committee. I'd like to welcome and thank everybody for being here today to celebrate Coach Ed Murphy and his legacy here in Dracut. If there's any grammar or anything in this occasion, head of our English department, just give me a pass today, okay? My guess is that each of the speakers will be referencing the records, the wins and losses, and mostly the years that Coach Murphy dedicated to leading the student athletes that he coached to many victories on and off the field, many of you here today. Without a doubt, 247 wins and being the 19th winningest coach, not sure if that was in the dictionary, but coach in state history is impressive. 426 combined wins with his son Dennis, who also coached at Greater Lowell, as a tie for the winningest father and son combo in the state of Massachusetts. Impressive. 11 Merrimack Valley championships. Impressive. A 1988 Super Bowl championship at the old Foxborough Stadium that was celebrated for years. Impressive. To me, as someone that has always had a great deal of admiration for coaches, Ed Murphy is someone that we will continue to look and celebrate for years to come. While the signs and plaques bear his name, the memories that will be with each of you are those for you to share. By the stories that are told and the people that he impacted in these hallways, in our community of Dracut, and on the football field behind me, we all owe the Murphy family a tremendous amount of gratitude and thanks for sharing a husband, a father, a grandfather with all of us for 46 years. Ed Murphy defined, literally, what it meant to be a Dracut Middie. He embodied local relationships, spirit, and camaraderie. In the spirit of Thanksgiving and the movie season, if his career could be titled, it might be, We Are the Middies. Middie Blue, the legend at Beaudry Field, or maybe the Dean of Dracut. Thank you to the committee, Superintendent Stone, Andy Graham, for all of their work today. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Go Middies.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkie. I neglected to recognize the principal of Dracut High School, Mr. Richard Manley, and our school business administrator, Mr. Frangimore. Thank you for being here today. It's my privilege to introduce the Dracut Town Manager, Mr. James Duggan.
Thank you, Stephen. It's an honor to be here with you this morning. Thank you very, very much. I was reintroduced to Coach Murphy back during his birthday at the Four Oaks. And I have a different connection with Coach Murphy. I mean, not only, when I was playing a little high did we play against him, but he and my dad went to Holy Cross together. My dad was in the class of 1939. As we all know, Coach Murphy was 1942. But they still had that connection. For quite a while, it was something my mom and dad would talk about with Coach Murphy, about Coach Murphy. And when I was reintroduced to Coach Murphy back in the summer of 2016, it was something that we immediately made that connection, started talking Holy Cross, about my mom and dad, about certain things like that, which I thought was the recall, the memory, the sincerity in the man was phenomenal, was absolutely phenomenal. But as I remember listening to the stories that day, I knew he was at the ring of fame for Holy Cross. He was one in the first group that was inducted for that. It was the Lowell High School Hall of Fame, Coaches Hall of Fame, and I also learned in his 80s he won 2 medals for Fit for Life, I believe in Florida. Amazing. I mean, Fit for Life. I'm 54 years old, and I mean, are you kidding? I mean, that's that's unbelievable. So very, very impressive. They say it takes a village, but what you need in that village, you need leaders in that village, people that lead by example, by sacrifice, discipline, consistency, and that's what Coach Murphy was to this community. If we can just embrace for a minute and just sit back and think the impact he's had on this entire community. That's from my perspective. I look at the entire community in the different areas and look at the positive impact the man had. It is so impressive. It is something that is unparalleled that I have seen firsthand in my lifetime. And it's something that he was an amazing man. He was a sincere man, a caring man, and it's something that it was an honor to know him and be here today. So I want to thank you very, very much for this opportunity, and I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll keep it go Middies, right? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duggan. At this time, I'd like to introduce Drakett's State Representative, Ms. Colleen Gary.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I look out and I see so many of the middies of my time, maybe a few years before, a few years after. It really is an honor to be here to honor our deceased Edmund Murphy. I've known him my entire life. He was my dad's friend to start with. And when I was old enough to come to the games, he was the one on the sidelines with Mr. Hughes, Hank Golick, Rudy, and of course Dave Stecky. It was amazing to me to see him, and actually he ended up being my gym teacher. And I don't know how tough he was on you guys, but he let the girls take an easy pass on a lot of things. So, but he was someone with a quiet dignity. Again, I didn't see him in the locker room, but after a game. But you know, he taught generations of Drakeit kids. He taught them teamwork. He taught them the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, and how to handle each one with grace. He was someone who loved his family so dearly, with Dennis and Brian and Danny and Dave. You could just see it, and his grandchildren. And of course his daughter-in-laws. You can't leave out the daughter-in-laws. But one person he loved so tremendously is someone that I just think of and grew up thinking glamorous, Justine. And she was as nice as she was beautiful. And I think of them together in heaven, watching over our Middies game this afternoon. But, you know, he really did. So many of you out there I see, if you could just stand, if you are now coaching Drakeit kids, please stand. Come on. So not only did he teach you, but he taught you how to teach other children. So he really is a legend in Drakeit. He is someone who will have an impact in the town of Drakeit forever because of his experience, his knowledge, and his love for his students. Notre Dame had Newt Rockne, Drake at Middies had Ed Murphy, and we will always hold him in our hearts. And if I could have, Danny, do you want to come up for a minute and accept this on behalf of the family? It's Commonwealth of Massachusetts House of Representatives. Be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to the family of Coach Edmund Murphy in recognition of the dedication of Edmund Murphy Athletic Complex at Drake High School. The entire membership extends its very best wishes, and we give this the 23rd day of November 2017. It's signed by the Speaker of the House, Robert DeLeo, offered by myself, and congratulations to the family.
Thank you.
We know you sacrifice a lot. Thank you.
Finally, I'd like to invite up Mr. Daniel Murphy and our Drake High's own Ms. Lauren Occasion Murphy to say a few words on behalf of the family.
Thank you. Yeah, you better help them out. Superintendent Stone, school committee people, town manager Jim Duggan, Representative Colleen Gary, former athletes and friends of Drake High School. Good morning, happy Thanksgiving Day. All coaches, we should be really revved up for today. And how appropriate to give thanks to my dad, Coach Murphy. Being a former assistant Drake football coach for 27 years, 17 of those years on my dad's staff, and my niece Lauren Murphy Occasion, who's the chairperson of the Drake English department, I'm extremely honored to represent the Murphy family here today. I'd like to take a few moments to recognize the rest of my immediate family. I have my brother and his companion, Michelle Nobrega, here today. I have the 1977 quarterback, David, his wife, Gail, son, Griffin and Dylan. I have my brother Brian's family. My brother Brian was a long time, probably 20 years as a videographer here at Drake High School. His wife Kathy, his son Kevin, and Keith and his wife Anna are here today. I have my wife Marianne, my dear wife. We have our new dad, Ryan, whose wife just gave birth to Lila Claire 3 weeks ago. And from the Hewitt side of our family, I have my cousin Maureen Judge. Maureen, you're hiding on me. I got everybody? Freddie's here? Oh, and Papa Smurf. Second cousin, actually first cousin once removed. And we're not related because we're Murphys, we're Finnegans. All right, to speak about my father would take a book. You just can't speak to him. So not that I'm giving out an award or a free advertisement, but this was just awesome. Our family was floored when we saw this come out by the Lowell Sun, and I should probably thank Chris Tierney, who was a 93 graduate, who was a big part of that. And I remember he did a big spread on Dave Stecky a few years ago. So we appreciate what he's done in the past. So go out and get a copy. For me, I'd like to take a few moments to express some virtues of Coach Murphy's legacy that were dear to him. Coach Ed Murphy was a tough disciplinarian. And for team success in football, discipline runs deep throughout all aspects of the game. As a member of the greatest generation, Ed Murphy was molded by the Depression and proudly served as a U.S. Marine in the Pacific during World War II, participating in landings in Peleliu and Okinawa. Not an easy task. Coach Murphy demanded the best of his players, and even more during times of adversity. especially the quarterbacks who like this. When they were coming off the field, if they saw him throw his hat to the ground, they knew they were going to get chewed up. Yeah. Ask my parent and Dave Murphy. He probably took a lot. This was not done solely for the glory of the game, but for the development of the student athlete in hopes that they could cope with the future during off-field hard times. It was also important to him to help out students with life's difficulties, like the importance of staying in school, getting a job, applying for college, and even personal problems. This all developed into what is known as Drake Pride. I remember my brother bringing this up during tough times. Drake Pride, which was worn on your practice jersey, but held strong in your heart. I want you to remember the saying he always had on the locker room wall. Never embarrass this team. Act with pride at all times for the team and for yourself. Coach Murphy made playing football a major part of a student's education here at Drake High School. You may not have liked him then, but you thanked him later on in life. The dean, as he was labeled by the Lowell Sun, he was humbled by a lot of the many awards he received over his long career. And we kind of knew this at home, but he never let it be made known. And he was somewhat uncomfortable with recognition. And though he would be very gracious at times, and comical, probably repeating a joke he just got from Dave Stecky, or Hank Golick, he would always deflect the attention and praise towards the talents of his many dedicated assistant coaches. Some of his coaches through the year, I'd like to call their names out. We had Joe Rourke, Bill Stevens. How many people remember Dick Bernhardt? Oh, look at him. Joe Coolis. How many? Everybody remembers Joe. Jack Noonan. Here today, Kenny Eldridge. All right, Bill Miller. Bill Miller's here today. Bill, thank you very much. Paul Crafton. Here today also is former Drake head coach, John Gibson. Hank Golick, who's present here today, thank you. Kenny Hughes, thank you very much. And Bob Rudolph. These assistants made him who he was. And let's not forget the longtime assistant, former Drake head coach, his Holy Cross buddy. You always have to throw the Holy Cross stuff in. Makes my... let's remember Dave Stecky, my father's longtime assistant coach. Don't let me forget, I have to throw this in. Excuse me for a minute here. Oh, and let's throw in my mom, Justine. I'm sure she gave Coach Murphy a lot of great advice. After all, 34 years ago, on this very day, probably right about at this hour, she delivered a pregame speech that inspired the middies to go out and clobber Methuen 37-7. And they won the MVC title that day. In closing up, our dad would almost always end his speeches expounding upon the efforts of the Drake community. This was very, very important to him. And that all of his awards as Coach Murphy were shared with you, the players, and the people of Drake and the Drake Public Schools. Thank you.
On behalf of my dad, Dennis Murphy, and the entire Murphy family, we want to express our gratitude to Superintendent Stone, Cindy Curtis, Mr. Manley, Joe Wilkie, Dan O'Connell, Betsy Murphy, Allison Volpe, and Sabrina Heisey, school committee, Andy Graham, Paula Chaucy, everyone involved with putting this dedication ceremony together. I've been fortunate enough to follow in my grandfather's footsteps as a teacher and coach at Drake High School. Although DHS has changed a lot since Grampy started his career, the core values of education, athletics, teamwork, and Midi pride are still strong here. His role as educator, coach, and friend inspires me every day and is an example my fellow teachers and I try to emulate. We wish everyone in the Drake community a happy Thanksgiving. Go Middies.
Thank you. In closing, in the time before the game is about to be played behind us, I invite you to take a walk downstairs to see the dedication plaque that has been unveiled during this ceremony. Also, we've made arrangements so that if anyone wishes, you may watch the game from the environmentally controlled comfort of the Learning Commons. It's our own little luxury box overlooking Boudry Field. So you're welcome to continue to stay and talk about Coach Murphy and enjoy the game. This ceremony is now concluded. I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you very much for attending today.